So tonight I'm going to teach you guys how to make an violet aviator. An aviator is kind of a classic Prohibition era drink, very simple to make. You only need a couple ingredients. Back during Prohibition, it was hard to get a lot of ingredients. Obviously, alcohol was illegal, and the side ingredients that you needed were also hard to come by, because it's like, what did you need those for if you weren't making alcoholic drinks? So basically you had bourbon, coming out of mostly Kentucky and some of the upper Midwestern and upper Southern states. And then you had gin. This is a gin-based drink. I tend to use a London dry gin, Beefeaters. It's very inexpensive, but it's a really good classic kind of Prohibition era drink. The other ingredient you need, which was easy to come by back then and today, is Luxardo Maraschino cherry. This is an Italian liqueur, but cherries were also something that were easy to ferment and mash and make. And then for the classic aviator, the only other thing you needed was fresh squeezed lemon juice, which I just squeezed 10 minutes ago. This is a variation of that. I'm making a violet aviator, so the only exotic ingredient is this creme de violet, which is pretty expensive, $40–50 a bottle, and at the time would have been incredibly hard to get. They actually discontinued this for about 20 years. They recently reintroduced it back into the US, and so that's what I'll be using to make this sort of the violet version of the aviator. So first, you just take some ice cubes, because we want this to be a cold drink, and you fill up 4 or 5 ice cubes in a little, I've just got a small shaker because I'm just making one drink right now. And then we'll start with the base, which is the gin liquor. And I'm going to do, I'll make a double. I'll do 2 shots of this gin, just to give it a nice, strong, alcoholic base, give us a nice little buzz. The maraschino cherry is also about 25% alcohol, and it's got like a nice tart cherry flavor to it. It's not very drinkable on its own, but in the mix you will actually definitely get a good cherry flavor from that. And then for the classic aviator, the only other thing we're going to do is put about 3/4 of a shot of fresh squeezed lemon juice. So that on its own is the classic aviator. So I'm going to just go ahead and shake that up. Give it a nice good shake. What you're trying to do is get it cold, but also you're letting some of the ice melt into the drink, which adds a little bit of water cut to it, which will give you a little bit more volume and also cut the alcohol just a tiny bit. So we're going to fill that up. It's got a nice white, bright, light color and flavor. Very easy, very drinkable, mostly alcoholic drink, except for that 3/4 of a shot of lemon juice. And if this were a classic aviator, I'd probably put a little onion spear in that and you'd be done. But we're making a violet aviator, so there's one more step. So to finish off the violet aviator, the last step is to actually do what we call float the violet. Now this violet is very sweet, it's very aromatic, it's very floral, so we're just going to take a tiny bit, just like less than a 1/4 shot, just like something like that. Just barely fill up your glass in there, and then we're going to do what's called floating. But floating is a misnomer, because we're not actually floating on top, we're going to float on the bottom. So I usually dip my spoon in my drink to just get it a little bit wet, and then I take my violet and I put it on my spoon, and we're going to float, which means pour this. This is a heavier liqueur than the rest of it, and so it sinks right to the bottom of the glass. And what you end up with is this nice, colorful drink that is light and airy on the top with a little bit of that violet base. And as you drink it, what happens is the violet mixes up in the drink, and you get all those flavors at once. You get the gin, you get the maraschino cherry, you get some lemon juice, and then you have that nice violet sweet finish at the end, and you actually finish with almost all violet in the end, which makes this very drinkable. Kind of a dangerous drink, because you could drink 5 or 6 of these in a night, get very drunk like I did on New Year's Eve, practically pass out while you're on the phone with your brother doing a Zoom call, but I'll tell you that it's worth it. Not much of a hangover the next day because it's cut with all this stuff, but you definitely feel the buzz that night. So anyway, there you go. There's the violet aviator. Pretty simple, with the exception of the one exotic thing that you might need, which is the violet. And if you don't want to do the violet, you could just do the classic aviator. Gin runs you about 20 bucks a bottle. Maraschino cherry for a bottle this size, this is almost a full liter, runs you about $25. And if you have access to lemons, they're free. A little bit of elbow grease to squeeze those things and make yourself some fresh lemon juice. You don't need a lot because you just use very little bit to cut it. And there you got a nice cocktail. So enjoy, guys.